Hey guys, I don't know if anybody's on here yet. It just turned 12 o'clock, so I am going to hang out for a couple of minutes while I get my notes and all my screens and stuff all set up. I will let you guys know that this lovely background you're seeing here is my gear closets. This is actually the quietest room in the house. And as you will probably hear during the course of this live stream, I have several dogs and they are noisy. If you've ever listened to one of my podcasts before or listened to me talk about how I have to hide in my gear closet to record stuff, it's why. Because it puts several doors in between me and the barking dogs. Okay, so you may see me looking around. I've got notes and I've got a couple of other screens set up. I'm fairly certain that with YouTube, the stream will automatically go on to my YouTube channel. At least I hope it will. I think that's how it works. Um, but this is the first live stream I've ever done. So I'm trying to record it from a few different angles as well as audio just in case. So bear with me if you see me looking around. I also have notes because I have a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I have some questions and stuff that people have sent in, and I want to make sure I don't forget anything. So, hey Barb, how you doing? I see Barb's joined us. Is it cold over there? Hey Tammy. Oh, how you doing? Yeah, it's cold here too. What's your temp there right now, Barb? Oh, thanks, Tammy. Do you guys have a drink? I've got a drink. I'm all ready. I'm ready. Thank you so much, Tammy. I enjoyed making those videos. It was my first really big multi-day walk, and sharing that I think was just it was really important for me to record it, but also sharing it, like, not only for my family, but for others as well. I think it's really turned out to be a good decision for me. I've had a few people actually message me and go, "Thanks for sharing that," because there were some pretty raw moments in in that. It's cold over here too, Barb. I think this morning when I woke up, it was 32 degrees. So that's kind of chilly for me, but it felt fine. We didn't have any, no ice or anything like that. And I have very little experience driving in ice and snow. So I have a feeling I'm about to get a crash course. Ah, all right. I am going to take one last look over my notes here. Can you guys hear me okay? Is the image quality all right? Oh, you had to defrost the car. I expected that I would. I expected that I would, but I ended up not having to this morning. It warmed up pretty quick to like 42. I think it's like 42 right now. Awesome, Tammy. I was a little concerned about that because my laptop is a bit older and I do have another cam that mounts up on top there that I've used for podcasts, but I don't think the quality on that thing is much better than this. So as long as you guys can hear me okay and see me okay, then we're good. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself for people who may not have watched me for very long or are coming to the stream later or as a first time viewer of Shan Outdoors. I make outdoor content, mainly hiking and backpacking. I I kind of looked at the channel when I started it as filming my outdoor evolution because I had an idea of where I wanted to go with my experiences in life and where I kind of wanted to put my energies. And I think that videoing it made me feel a little more accountable to myself. Um, Barb and I, met doing, fitness type stuff, and that's where I was. I was following a lot of fitness people, and Barb was one of them, and at the time that I did the West Highland Way, um, I was really focusing on taking my journey in a different direction. I was training for bodybuilding competitions, and that's really where all my energy and all my focus was going. And um, there was kind of a dual thing that happened and kind of made me shift a little bit in that goal. Um, I kind of I don't wanna say stupidly, but I naively thought that I would be able to do comp prep and through hiking at the same time. My coach was like, "Okay, it would be a great fat loss tool, but the food that you need the food that you need, to through hike, especially if you're going to hike somewhere like the Scottish Highlands where you do need to have a little bit energy to get up some hills. Um, yeah, it messed with my mind and it was very difficult to do. I think it was kind of silly for me to try to do the two of them together, at least at that time in my life. And I was also going through a lot of personal stuff. Just a lot of personal stuff, including not long before that, the death of my dad and he had a lot of dreams that were unrealized. He was a big adventure guy. He liked to do crazy things. He rode motorcycles, speedboats. He was in the military, he used to talk about jumping out of planes, all that stuff. He was a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and he had a lot of exploring and things that he wanted to do in life. And I watched life kind of take that and, I don't wanna say that it wasn't his responsibility because it was the choices that he made not to pursue that, but life kinda beat that out of him, and that's kind of along the lines of what I wanna talk about today, is that it is possible to incorporate adventure into your life. Um, so for me, it was a lot of personal stuff. I had a mastectomy in 2012. I've been battling retinal issues since I was about 27, 28 years old. So I was like, okay, what's going to happen first? Is cancer going to take me out? Am I going to lose my sight and not be able to see all of the things I want to see? And I remember my dad talking to me about a trip he took to Iceland and how it just blew him away because he was just a country boy from Kentucky, and he had never been anywhere until he joined the military, and that trip to Iceland really stuck with him, because it was so far outside of his comfort zone, and once he came back to the US after his military service and got married, and I came along, and my sister came along, um, and my mom is totally opposite. She is not adventurous at all. Her dreams and goals in life were to be a mother. And that's totally fine if that's what you want to do and that's all you want to aspire to in life. That's completely fine because everybody has their own dreams and goals. But the two of those together, um, it made it kind of hard for him to pursue what he wanted to do. And I was acutely aware of how many things he dreamed about and wanted to do. So I told myself, I feel like I've had life, going, hey, um, we have these things that are going on with you that we need to take care of. And I spent more and more time being absorbed by those things. And then, of course, I'm married, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I have kids. So for me, when COVID hit and I was going through that bodybuilding phase and trying to get ready for my first bodybuilding competition, um, stuff just happened in my personal life after my dad died and other things happening. Just I hit a point where I knew that something had to change. And I'm sure everybody has been through a moment or more moments like this in their lives where something happens to you and you go, "You know what? I can't do this anymore." And you have to switch gears. Um, so I had planned to hike the PCT, prior to getting into bodybuilding. Um, and I thought that bodybuilding was going to bring me that feeling I was looking for, the accomplishment, the um, just the sense of self. And I don't want to say that it didn't, because I learned a hell of a lot about myself, my limits, and what the human body is capable of. So I think without bodybuilding and without strength training and stuff, um, I don't think that physically or emotionally I would have been ready for the West Highland Way. Um, because that takes a lot of mental and physical preparation. Barb, I'm sure you can chime in here on that because you are also in the fitness industry and you have also hiked the West Highland Way. Um, I think you can go into it with no training. I don't think it's wise. Um, and for me, even with all the training, I found it really hard at first. I found it hard. Um, so I just hit a point in my life where I just had to drop everything and get away. And I know that sounds a little bit like, okay, well, I can't afford to just drop everything and get away. And I have had people say that to me before, and I really wasn't in a position to do that either. But I had some money set aside for bodybuilding because I would have had to travel to my coach prior to my first show. I would have had to stay in a hotel, would have had to rent a car. So I did have a little bit of money set aside for that. Um, and I think that just the mental prep and the physical prep that went into all of that was a big help. Um, yeah, heavy squats, big time. Yeah, I was doing a lot of heavy squatting, prior to that, and it definitely helped for sure. But it was a mental thing that made me go, "You know what? I'm gonna go for the West Highland Way." The PCT was something that I had planned on doing in 2020. And we all know what happened with COVID and everything was shut down. The trails were all shutting down, which seems ludicrous to me that the outdoors shut down. But sometimes I can't believe we went through all that. Um, and I knew that in reality, I wasn't going to be able to take 5 months or maybe even 6 months out of my life. Um, and the only experience that I had had on multi-day backpacking up to that point was a short jaunt on the Appalachian Trail in between two breast reconstruction surgeries. I want to say 2017 or 18, I'm not quite sure. Um, and that that journey there, I don't know how much I've ever talked about that, but that was very eye-opening for me. I was still carrying a lot of weight, and fluid from those breast surgeries, but I was ready to get away. I knew what I needed to do, um, but it was a little bit of a um, eye-opening experience, let's say, to spend a few days alone. And it was my first overnight alone hiking, camping, backpacking experience. And I took off with a 50-pound pack. It was a big old Osprey, 58-liter pack. And I was only planning on being out there for a few days. Brought a dog with me. Um, so I had way too much stuff, but I knew what I needed and what I wanted to do, and I was very determined about it. But that was the only experience that I had prior to that first Scotland trip. And so I figured maybe going overseas might be a little bit easier than trying to do something in America, during the whole COVID thing. And, after things opened up, I mean, in 2022, when I went, everything was pretty well opened up. There were still some leftovers from that time, and even my most recent trips over to Scotland, I have noticed some businesses still requiring masks and things like that. But, um, yeah, it was an emotional thing, and I think that a lot of reasons that people wanna go on journeys like these are emotional reasons. I think that a lot of us are tired. I know you primarily, at least me, when I'm watching YouTube videos, I see a lot of younger people out on trail. I don't see as many people in my age bracket. I usually see a lot of younger 20 somethings and then older retirees. And I realize that it is difficult for people in my age bracket to leave all of their responsibilities because many of us are still, mortgages, jobs, kids, um, pets. It's hard to leave all those things. Um, so for me, I just hit that crossroads and a whole bunch of things were going on. And I just knew that I needed to get out and get myself immersed in some nature and get as far away as I possibly could. And Scotland had been on my list for a while, so that's why I chose it. Um, I just did not want to think of what my life would be like if I didn't go and do these things because I had my dad's voice fresh in my head and the retina thing was and is very scary. A couple of years back I had another retinal detachment and I just came back from an appointment the other day because I was seeing black spots and every time I see anything in my vision now I have to go and get looked at and they're like, "Oh, you got another cataract in your other eye. Fantastic." The retinas are good though. So retinas are good. The optic nerve looks good. So, it's just all those things combined together to really kind of um just put pressure on me. For me, it was a feeling of pressure, like time could be running out. That's what I felt like. I felt like now is the time. If I don't do it now, I may never do it. Um, did I feel ready? Mm, yes and no. And I've got that question a lot, like, did you feel ready when you got on the plane to go? Not 100%. Physically, I was pretty confident that I could do it. I was the strongest I've ever been in my life. I was in the best shape of my life on that first trip. Um, but it was important for me to, take that time for myself. So, yeah, and since then, sharing my journey and my foray into outdoor pursuits is as much for me and my family and my kids to show them, hey, look what your old mom can do, you know. And they may not, care much about it now. I don't know how many of my kids actually watch my YouTube. But one day this will be there for them. And I wanted them to see that no matter what happens to you in life, no matter what cards you're dealt, um, we all have free will and free choice, most of us. And if you're going to do something, you absolutely can do it with preparation and with, believing in yourself enough. Sometimes believing in yourself to a fault. Because I crazy believed I could get up Conic Hill that first time, and it slapped the shit out of me. The first time I went up that hill, it was an eye opener because I'm from Florida, and everything I've ever hiked on up to that point, other than little trips to the mountains and stuff, was, flat. So, yeah, I learned so much. I learned so much about myself and what I was capable of on that trip. Um, and that kinda leads me into how it changed my life after that trip. How choosing to go on that adventure changed my life. Um, it just it changed the way I looked at everything. After that experience, um, I tended to appreciate things more. I appreciated a warm place to sleep. I appreciated food. Um, Conic with a backpack is tough. Yeah, you need to believe in yourself rather than wait on someone else's belief in you. 100%. Because, um, and I'll talk about this later, you may encounter people who wanna poo-poo what you wanna do. And I actually do have, like, a little paragraph I wanna talk about with that, but yeah, you need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in yourself real, real hard, um, because sometimes you gotta dig deep and realize that you are the only cheering section that you have out there. Um, I gained an enormous amount of confidence after that trip. Um, After day 2, when I was having some tachycardic issues, and I still experience those. I actually am about ready to go see a cardiologist here, to make sure that I don't really have an issue going on, before I head out on the PCT for 5 months, you know? Um, I have a cardiologist in Florida. I've been monitored. I've looked at a lot of things. It's already been established I have PVCs. Those are fairly common in people, but I also believe that there is something else going on, and I just wanna be prepared. But that trip showed me what I was really capable of and how I really could rely on myself, um, and how important it was for me to realize that I am more than just someone's wife, someone's mom, because since I had my son, the whole of my adult life has been devoted literally to everybody else's needs. Between my husband and myself, we have 5 children, and it's always been about what is best for them, and I think that as a female, we are taught that we are supposed to cater, at least where I grew up. I'm from the South. My mother's from the South. My dad's from the South. And I had a very traditionally Southern mom. And she stayed home and took care of our every need. Hey Jill, how you doing? Thanks for joining. I'm talking about how, that first West Highland experience changed me. Um, it just showed me and renewed what I already knew is that aside from being a wife and a mom, there was still a person in there. When I grew up in the US in particular, we were pumped full of in the 80s, girl power, you know? Hey, Jacqueline. We were pumped full of girl power and you can do anything and you can be anything. And then eventually what I learned through dating and getting married and navigating through careers and stuff is you can do anything you want as long as it doesn't interfere with what your husband wants or your kid wants or what your job wants. It's everything's got to be okay for everybody else. And if there's anything left over, you can have that. And I know that my, people who follow me that are moms understand this. You can lose yourself in our modern society. And I won't just say just moms because there's a lot of pressure on all people in today's society and what society expects from us. But when I share my stuff, that's the perspective that I'm sharing from because I feel like that demographic is grossly underserved because after our 20s and 30s when we're no longer looked at in a certain way, I feel like outside of motherhood or your job or, whether or not you're in a relationship, having something for yourself is often looked at as selfish. And deciding you want something for yourself, like these adventures, it can be a little bit of a rebellious act. So, another thing that I learned is that rebellious streak I had as a teenager was going to serve me really well when I started embarking on these different types of adventures. Even when I started bodybuilding and decided that I wanted to compete, people in my life closest to me were looking at me like, huh? Because it took a lot of time. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of preparation, and a lot of investing in myself. And I all of a sudden was asking everyone else around me to invest in me. Hey, I need a little bit of something from you because I've been shelling out all of myself for all these years and I need to pour a little bit back into myself. Um, and the same thing was true when I started adventuring. I'm like, okay, I will make sure that it doesn't completely devastate, our financial future as far as the family goes, but, I'm gonna need ABCD. And I was a lot more clear on my path in life and what I wanted to do after coming out of that experience, because that experience, um and I may make it sound really dramatic, but it was. For me, it was very dramatic going from flat, hot Florida to where I was mom and shuttling kids to school and things and dealing with clients and dealing with my pets and my normal life, and deciding that I wanted to get on a plane, go to another country, and live out of a backpack for, I think that first trip was 9 to 10 days, um, with only very minimal prior experience. So a lot of people looked at me like, okay, and didn't take it seriously. And I am the type of personality that's like, "Oh, you don't think I can do it? Watch me. Watch me go and do it." Um, so I learned to be a little more vocal about what I wanted and needed. I learned that your mind, and I knew this from training, but I think as a coach, I regurgitated a lot of things so much that I really forgot what it was like to experience them, as a newbie. And when I went on that trip, I really learned how much power your mind has over you and how much your mind will give up way before your body does. Way, way, way before your body does. Um, Everyone then thinking, "Okay, she's got it out of her system now." Exactly, Barb. Exactly. And I will say that my husband literally said that very thing to me when I came back. He's like, "Whew, all right, whew, glad that's over," you know? Um, and I went, No." Because after I had the mastectomy and I spent literally 5 years of my life in and out of a bed for 5 straight ass years, I told myself that when I turned 50, I was going to do something adventurous and exciting and out of the box every single year. Every single year, no matter what. And I made that promise to myself, with myself in mind, but also my dad, because he really believed in me. And even though he was from a different generation, he was almost 40 years old when I was born, and I was born in the 70s. Um, so there was a big generational gap, and he was tough. He was a tough guy. Um, but he often told me, "You know what, Shannon," because I was a pain in the ass kid. He said, "You know what? I may give out physically, emotionally, but I will never give in. I will never give up on you. I will never give up. That's not something you will ever see me do." And that has stuck with me, um, for all these years, and whenever things get really hard, I think about that. Because like I said, we didn't have many deep philosophical conversations, but it was not lost on me how many things he wanted to do in his life and did not get the chance because he wouldn't do them without my mom, and my mom just is not adventurous and didn't wanna do that. And for whatever reason, my dad decided, well, I'm he decided he wasn't gonna pursue those things. Um, and I decided that I was gonna be different because there's a lot of things that I wanna do and see, and I had a life and I had dreams before I became a mom and a parent and a wife, and I will tell you, um never was it more apparent to me that I needed to get on the ball with that as after I had all those medical issues and after I watched my father die of cancer. Sickness and illness has a way of making you prioritize things and reprioritize your life and what is important to you. So yeah, that was a lot, but those are things that I learned doing this stuff, and I feel like it was and is a very evolutionary process. Jill says, "My dad and my ex-husband did everything they wanted." Of course, and that is a societal thing I have found that anywhere from hobbies to careers to a lot of the adventurers you see out there, and I'm thankful that there are more women adventurers now than there used to be, but the outdoor field, it's primarily inhabited, like everywhere else on the planet, by men. Not that that's bad. I love all the accounts that I follow, but I think that it is very important to realize that we have females and people in my age bracket and me taken a back seat to what other people wanted from us. And I was okay with that for a really long time, but going through those experiences, I decided I was going to do this thing. And after I did the West Highland Way, it profoundly changed me so much being out there in the wilds of Scotland, with no one to rely on but yourself and your wits and your GPS and, all the gear that you meticulously picked out. Um, and no one can do it but you. And it changed me. It changed me. I remember one particular moment, on the Great Glen Way, and that was the second trail that I did. I did the West Highland Way first, and the West Highland Way ends in Fort William, which is conveniently where another trail begins, and I went, "Hmm, shall we hike this? Of course we shall." Because when you go on one of these walks, no matter how it starts, I don't know anybody who has gotten to the end and after taking a break for a day or so, not gone, "Okay, well, what's next?" And that need to keep going and that drive to keep walking, your legs and your body, everything gets so used to that rhythm and just going along. I started the Great Glen Way immediately after the West Highland Way, and I remember one moment standing on a hilltop overlooking Loch Ness, realizing I have dreamt about this place my whole life. As a little kid, heard stories of the Loch Ness Monster. Um, uh, I grew up knowing that, my mom's side of the family were MacLeods. My grandfather's mother was directly from Scotland, so I knew there was a Scottish connection. Um, so I was standing there and I just my eyes welled up and I started crying because I thought, "I did it. I did this thing. I did it. I planned it all. I did all the training. I researched the gear. I tried it all out. I found my way here. I did all the places to stay. Like, I did everything. I did the whole thing myself, and it was incredibly empowering. It was very, very empowering, and the fact that I didn't have my life, the chaos that is my life, and I know sometimes I make my life sound really, Re really bad. It's just loud. I have a loud life. I have a chaotic life because when your kids grow up, they bring you adult problems. And I do have a daughter that's still in high school. We all remember how dramatic that was. Um, and, I was in that habit of dropping everything in my life, everything, even self-care. Like, I was a huge makeup girl, stopped wearing makeup because why? Um, Stopped doing a whole bunch of things because why? There's just no time. My family takes up all my time. And I stood on that hilltop and I just cried because that time was mine. That was my time. And no matter what happened at any other juncture in my life, that was my time. I was in Scotland. I was living my dream. And God damn it, I was going to keep going. And I was going to seek out that kind of joy in my life on a regular basis because that I think was the first time in a really long time that I really knew joy, like, since my kids were born. Um, because, you get sucked up in life, everybody does. We don't have time to go, "Am I happy?" Um, I was just ecstatic. I was so, so freaking happy. I just cried and looked around and went, "This is the best." I was tired. I had just trucked all the way up this hill. My feet hurt. I think that I had, a bruised toenail or 2. I had a bunch of blisters at that point. Um, I had already lost, like, 8 pounds the previous 11 days. Um, I was so happy. I was so happy. Um, so it it can bring you so many things that I don't think you realize are missing until you experience something like this and take yourself out of the comfort zone of your everyday life. Um, so a question I get a lot is where to begin. Like, I want to have some of these experiences. I have had a lot of people in my life come up to me after I return from one of these excursions and go, "I'm I'm inspired by the fact that you do that. I could never do that. I could never." Yeah, you could. You could. You absolutely could. There's nothing special about me. Um, you can do it. You just have to decide. You have to decide. That's it. You have to decide how important it is to you and what you want your life to look like. I wanted my life to have more adventure in it. I wanted to prioritize moments like that in my own life no matter what. Because the fact that you have a job, responsibilities, family, all those other things should not mean that you have to completely erase who you are and what you want out of life and what you dream about. I think that's absurd. It's ridiculous. Um, and I, over the years, have had people try to talk me out of it, you know? So you have to decide what adventure, and I say that, because it doesn't have to be a big, huge thing. Adventure can be many things to many people. I think you have to decide what it looks like to you. Like for instance, my mom. After the death of my dad, my mom, super deep depression, would not do anything. And it took a very, very long time. Of course, when you lose somebody and your life changes in such a way, it took her a very long time to leave her house. And it wasn't until I got her a little dog because my father's dog passed away not long after he did. I got her a little dog and she started taking walks around her neighborhood. And that's not something my mom would ever do. My mom just she didn't walk outside, she didn't do things outside, she just didn't. Um, and she started walking her neighborhood with her little dog, and as a consequence, she met people, as you do when you have a cute little dog. And I knew this, which was part of the reason for me getting her that little dog. Um, she met so many people that had lived in her neighborhood for years that knew my father, but didn't know her. And she made new friends She got into a regular routine of moving her body, which in turn made her feel better. For her and her little dog, it was a big adventure. Her little dog was new to the world and new to my mom, and it was a big old adventure they were going on together to walk around the neighborhood. And it was a big adventure for my mom to step out of her house without my father and do anything by herself. So, you have to decide what adventure looks like to you. What does it mean to you? What do you want it to be? Um, and I actually looked up let me look it up here. I wrote it down. The definition of adventure in the Oxford Dictionary is an unusual, exciting, typically hazardous experience or activity. Well, let me start by saying it doesn't have to be hazardous. Doesn't have to be hazardous. Um, but you have to meet yourself, I think, where you are currently at. For instance, I have a friend who is like, I love what you do and I want to do it too. And she's coming from a place of, not total, totally being sedentary, but not a very active lifestyle. And you have to meet yourself where you are. You want to take bite-sized pieces of what you can do and work your way up. So for her, it would be moving your body more than you already do. And this is something that I talk about in my coaching, that you cannot expect to climb mountains right out of the gate. You've got to first start by, baby steps. Just like when you're a little baby, you're crawling first, then you're teetering along, then you're walking, then you're running. Um, you've got to build. You have to build slowly, because a lot of things can happen if you rush stuff. You can injure yourself. Um, you can have a lot more difficulty in mentally grasping where it is you are and where you need to go if you try to go full bore too fast. Um, so start out slowly. Decide what it is you want to do and what you need to put in place to get there. Make a list of everything you need physically, emotionally, gear wise to do this thing. What do you need to fall into place? You need a certain amount of stamina. You need the right gear, and we'll talk about gear in a little bit. You need time off work. What do you have to do to make that happen? You need money in the bank, and we're also going to talk about that. Um, but I also want to talk about emotional preparation because I think that emotionally preparing yourself for being someplace that is completely out of your comfort zone is a big one. I consider myself pretty strong. I'm pretty strong. I think I can pretty much handle anything that's thrown at me. I'm pretty confident in that way. But I will say that since I turned 40, I have dealt with panic attacks and anxiety to levels that I never had before. Whether it was a product of me living the life that I lived for so long and my nervous system just had it, and it had to come out in some way, or I don't know. But I started dealing with that stuff. And if you don't get a handle on things like that, or at least make an effort to understand stuff like that, it can affect you. And I think that if it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen when you're out on trail for the first time alone by yourself in your tent and you hear noises, you know, or you get halfway up a pretty difficult hill and your heart is pounding in your chest and your legs are turning to jelly because you see the views around you and you're like, I can't do this. Um, so emotionally preparing yourself is a big one also. Um, but also know that it is possible to get where you want to be. It is possible. You can do these things. I think so many people count themselves out before they ever start. Like I have an acquaintance who's like, I could never do that. I just can't get away from my kids. I can't get away from this. I can't do that. And I do understand the difficulties of when you have so many responsibilities. It wasn't until my youngest child got to a point where she could relatively take care of herself that I felt comfortable enough to go out on longer excursions or more difficult excursions. Um, but yeah, you have to meet yourself where you're at. Definitely don't expect too much of yourself too soon. An example of this is my very first overnight ever. Um, on the Appalachian Trail. I summited Springer Mountain and spent the night up there by myself, and it was the first time I had been alone. I was far from home, um, and it was just a whole lot of silence, and it was a tough climb. I will tell you that I understand why a large proportion of AT hikers will do uh, that first trail up Springer Mountain. It's not an official part of the Appalachian Trail, but it is a tradition to do the Springer Summit. Um, it's hard as hell. It was really, really hard. Um, it says at the bottom that it takes about 7 to 8 hours to do, and it took a long time. I was schlepping myself into camp, at dark, and I was setting up everything in the dark, and I just felt this need to rush everything. Like, I gotta get everything set up before dark. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And what I didn't realize was the whole purpose that I was out there was to slow down and to experience having to do nothing but walk and look at the beautiful nature and eat and rest, aside from hiking, which is hard. But I woke up about 2 in the morning having a full-on panic attack, and it's the first panic attack I really recognized after as an actual panic attack because it sent me off the mountain the next morning to the doctor immediately because I thought there was something wrong with me, like, really wrong with me. I felt like I couldn't breathe, I was getting sweaty, I was just panicked for no reason, just out of a dead sleep. Um, and I think things like that can sneak up on you. Um, Barb says slowing it down is tough, and I think that's a symptom of the go, go, go of life. It was. For me, it definitely was because at that time in my life, um, I was going through some really tough emotional times, both with the results of some of my breast reconstruction. Um, the reason it went for 5 years is because it failed every single time, and I was dealing with that. But I'm not a quitter, so I just kept going for 5 years. Um, and my kids and my relationship at the time was just really hard. It was bad. And I didn't know. I could not keep that mask and facade up anymore because I am a person that likes to be in control of everything. And all those things that were happening to me made me realize I can't control anything but me. And I think that was the only way that my body could force me to pay attention. Um, so if you don't emotionally prepare yourself, your body will do it for you. Um, and I think that it's also important to recognize fear in situations like this when you want to do something that is outside of your comfort zone. I think it was George Adair. Let me see. Yeah, George Adair, um, who said everything you want is on the other side of fear. And it's true. It's 100% true. The more scary things that I do, the more things I do that I'm afraid of and conquer and get through and make it through another day, um, the better I am at dealing with other things that come up in life. And just you're more rounded as a human when you realize that a lot of the things that you build up are in your mind. So what kind of along the same vein as meet yourself where you're at is starting small. Because I have a lot of people ask me, where do I even begin? Like I don't know where to start. Um, I had a client who just was so paralyzed, um, up in her head about food that she got to the point where she couldn't even look at it. She couldn't eat it. She couldn't, and that was way out of the scope of my training and what I do. But um fear can do so many things to you. It can rob you of your health, it can rob you of chances that you miss. It can rob you of experiences. So just start small. Give yourself a freaking break, first of all, and realize that you are capable. Whatever it is you want to do, you are capable. You may not have the tools right now, but you can get them. You can start small, start where you are. And I will take hiking as an example because that's kind of the gist of what we're talking about, hiking, backpacking, outdoor excursions. Um, for me, walking was one of the only things that I was allowed to do post surgery, and that is how my foray into the outdoors began, was walking. If you're not walking at all and you want to do a hike, start out with something small. Look for what's in your backyard. You can look what's if you have a treadmill, you can do that. It's in your own living room. Um, I prefer though, and I recommend, and I would even tell my clients this, even though you do have a treadmill inside, get outside. Get outside and get some sun and some air and go see what's around you. Breathe in some of the stuff that the trees are giving off and do yourself some good. Get outside. Um, Start walking around your neighborhood. I literally just started walking around my neighborhood when I was recovering from all those surgeries. Um, and then after a while, I went, you know what? My walk is short now. I need a longer walk. And I started adding more blocks and more blocks and more blocks. And then there was a really big bridge close to where I lived that I used to cross over as a child. Um, and I started walking over that. And then I started walking on local trails. And then I started going other places, walking on longer trails. I just, I went really slow. I did what my body could do. I learned about fueling my body properly for these excursions. I made sure I was hydrated. I made sure I had snacks. I made sure that I had sun protection. I made sure I had, if I needed it, a GPS, my phone, told people where I was going so that I was safe. It was my only respite at that time from a lot of things that were so chaotic in my life at home. For me, getting on the treadmill was a possibility, but the likelihood of me being on that treadmill for 5 straight minutes before someone came to ask me for something or a dog destroyed something and I had to get up and deal with that, were slim to none. So, I just started off walking. That's it. You don't have to do anything special, go anywhere special, put on some shoes and do it. Um, I will say that you need to build up your stamina if you wanna do multi-day hiking trips. If you don't, the trail will do it for you for sure. And I know that a lot of people will use that. They will go, okay, well, I'll get in shape when I'm out there. You trust me, you don't want to do that. You don't take that approach. Don't do that. Um, Prepare ahead of time. Always focus on making your walks. In this case, we're talking about walking. Always focus on making your walks a little bit longer, a little bit harder. Um, you want to be challenging yourself. You don't wanna still be walking the same block 6 months in to your training efforts. You want to, as we say in the industry, progressively overload. You wanna make sure that you're making things hard. At first, it's gonna be just about doing it, and the accomplishment of taking that time for yourself, of getting your body moving, but your body will adapt. So you're going to have to give yourself a little more mileage, find a little bit more difficult trail. And for my peeps that are in Florida, um, just know that you can train for elevation and for ups and downs. It's just a little harder, but you can do it. I was living in Florida before I went to Scotland, and I think my training it for sure paid off. Um, One thing I touched on earlier, coffee break. Mm, One thing that I touched on earlier is when you start to make changes or prepare to incorporate more, in this case, adventure, doing things outside, pursuing things you want to do in the outdoors, just anything out of the norm for you, expect resistance from people. It will come from the places that you least expect it, friends and family. When I first expressed that I wanted to hike the West Highland Way, I got everything from laughing to why, to okay, to straight up, you can't do that. Um, so expect that people are not going to be as excited as you are about your adventure goals. Um, and that's okay. At first, it really bothered me because I had been supportive of so many people in my life. And I'm not going to say that I didn't get support. I did. But, there are some directions that resistance comes from that kind of shakes you a little bit like, oh, I never expected them to not understand or not support or, you know, um, so be prepared for that. And that's totally okay. Um, this is especially true in like fitness journeys, but I think a lot of things with, like fitness journeys or adventure trips and getting into anything that is hard and takes time and consistent effort, um, you are going to come up against people who see in you what they want to be, want to do, um, and they don't know how to get there, or it reminds them of what they're not doing, I think, in a lot of instances. Um, and it's okay because you have to be firm in your resolve that you know what is best for you and you are pursuing this because you have a burning desire to do it for ABCD. Um, this journey isn't about them, it's about you. So even though the ones closest to you may be like, I don't have the faintest idea why you think you should do this or you have to do this. Um, let them know that's okay. That's all right. You don't have to understand. Um, but it's important that you believe that you can do it and you don't let that sway you. Um, I straight up have been called crazy so many times for doing these things. And to me, I don't think it's crazy. To me, I think that it is sad to have a dream, to have something you want to do and not do it because it goes right back to me thinking about my dad. You know, if he had the chance to do all those things he talked to me about wanting to do for so many years, I know he would want to do it. And I'm still here. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do these things. I'm going to do them. So expect resistance, but know that it's totally okay. And it is normal. It's normal. Um, Another thing you need to do is you have to devote time. You have to devote time to your adventure goals. And this is why this is what stumps people in any kind of transformation or anything they want to do is trying to find the time. My advice to you is don't try to find it, make it. Make it a priority. Put it on your calendar, your day planner, your whatever it is, right up there with everything else. And I will tell you what I tell my clients and what I've told my clients is that you need to, when you're making your day planners and your calendar and your schedules, you need to put your stuff first, because so many of us go, okay, well, my dog's thing is here, my kids' things are here, and the la 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 la. And very often there's no time for your things. And in my opinion, I would much rather show my children, especially my daughter, that you don't grow up neglecting yourself. You want to be a strong woman. You want to have your goals. You want to pursue the things you want in life. And that's the kind of thing that I want to present to her. I don't want her to see adulthood as self sacrifice to the point that you don't know who you are anymore, that there's no joy in your life, there's no adventure in your life. Um, it just, you have to prioritize it. It has to be a priority. And I, I've had people come to me and go, "Well, I just don't have any time to train." Well, it's not a priority for you then. And that's what I would say to them, because if you're not making time for it, it's not a priority. It's not a priority. You have to make it a priority. Um, so I literally will put stuff on my calendar first before anybody else. And it may feel wrong. It may feel like, well, this is selfish. Well, self-care is not selfish. Having dreams and goals is not selfish. Um, you know, you can make it work with your life 100%, which leads me into the next thing that people ask me about, and that is finances. And before I get into that, does anybody have a question or anything specific that they want to ask me? And this will give everybody a chance to like have a little coffee break. Mm. Jill says you are speaking to me 100% fear. Yeah, fear stops us from doing a lot of things. It has stopped me from doing a lot of things. It almost stopped me from doing something the other day. I was on a day hike and my map that I downloaded was flaking out. And for a minute, it looked like I was on the wrong trail. And I was literally standing on the side of a little mountain. And I went, I don't know where I am. I don't know what to do. I panicked. I was afraid. But that's okay. We just have to work through that. We just have to work through that and know that fear doesn't have to rule you. It doesn't have to rule you. Um, so financial preparation for adventuring. It can change your life in many, many ways. Like I talked about earlier. Um, But in order to do that, of course, it takes some finances. It takes some dollar bills to be able to do some of these things. Um, and again, I reiterate, start small. Start with, like, for my every year, I have a jar that I throw spare change in, that I find, that I have laying around my car, the couch cushions, wherever I find it. And I throw it in a jar, and all of that money goes toward adventures. Um, and you have to decide what is right for you. What are you financially able to do? So, how lofty your adventure goals are going to have a direct bearing on how much money you need to have set aside. You have to know what bills you have paid while you're gone. Um, who's going to watch the pets? If there are kids, where are they going to be? And how are you going to pay the sitter if that's a thing? Car payments, bills while you're gone. You need to start planning. And the further out, the better. Um, you don't have to be rich. I will say you don't have to be rich. So many of us don't so many of us, especially the way that I grew up looking at trips and excursions and things, I grew up looking at it as you got to stay in a fancy hotel, you got to have a tour guide, you got to have a car driving you around everywhere. Um, before I even started planning, I'm like, I can never afford all that. And it was just gone like that. I can never do that. And then it was gone. So you have to decide the scale of your adventure. So, for instance, let's just say you want to do a small multi-day hike. We'll take the West Highland Way, for example, because that's the first one that I did. Um, you just have to shift your perspective and some priorities around. We all know I'm a Starbucks girl every single day with the coffee. You would be surprised how much money you can save by not going to Starbucks every day. So for my first trip of the West Highland Way or my first multi-day excursion, I cut down my Starbucks. I did not eliminate it because we're not talking about suffering here. We're talking about just cutting down a little bit. So I trimmed it off. I changed my drink. I went to a cheaper drink. I went to a smaller drink. Um, I was not willing to give it up completely. But you can. If you are one of those people that are like, I'm going to do the coffee at home because that's how important this is to me. Do the coffee at home. Um, shop at thrift stores. I used to show dogs and I used to have to show up wearing really nice suits. And I didn't have the money for it back in the day when I was younger. So I found Armani. I found Ralph Lauren, all kinds of really nice suits at thrift stores. So when it comes time to buy that wardrobe for the next year, thrift stores, Goodwill is fan freaking tastic. Um, Facebook Marketplace, swap boards. You can save a crap ton of money if clothing is something you spend a lot of money on. Going out. That's not something I do a lot. I do know a lot of people do. See if you can cut your entertainment budget. See what you can commit to putting aside from your entertainment budget and stick to it. Check your monthly subscriptions. If you have an iPhone, go under your Apple ID and look at all the things you're subscribed to every month. It's eye-opening how much money that can equal. I cut down almost all of my subscriptions before I went overseas. Um, oh, Tammy says, I just got an almost brand new pair of Ultra Olympus 5s from Poshmark for $40. Yes, girl. Ultra Olympus 5s are my current go-to hiking shoe. And those suckers are like, what, Tammy, $180 retail, something like that, 180, 190. They're not cheap. Um, I have saved so much money. Poshmark, eBay. Um, Trust me, you can save a lot of money and still look good. Um, if you do not already have a budget, create one. Create a budget or hone in, rework the one you currently have. Um, take a small amount each paycheck. It doesn't matter how small, whatever you can spare, and put that aside. I put mine the way it was easier for me to see it. What I would do is I physically took mine out of the ATM a lot of times and I put it in an envelope so I could see it growing. But you can also set your bank to withdraw a certain amount out of your account and put it into savings. You want to put it somewhere where you're not going to touch it. Don't touch it under any circumstances. Um, Monitor flight prices. That is something that I have learned a lot about is monitoring a lot of these websites that you can sign up for that what is one of them? somebody's cheap flights, Matt's cheap flights or something like that. There's a lot of websites where you can monitor flight prices. When you're going on Google and you're checking flight prices, make sure you're doing it incognito, um, and you'll get cheaper cheaper flight prices. Um, Start looking at flights as far out as you possibly can. One of my little tricks that I do is I book the trip as far in advance as I possibly can, and I buy that ticket because nothing is gonna make me get into gear quicker than that ticket knowing I already paid for it, and I've gotta figure everything else out. I work best under pressure. That's the method that works for me. When I'm on an excursion, very often on the way back home or before I've left that destination, I've already bought another ticket for the following year because credit cards and rewards. A lot of times you can use your rewards for travel. So if you have some credit cards right now and are getting ready to do your Christmas shopping, look at the rewards because a lot of us forget about those. I've even had rewards expire because I freaking forgot about them. You can use those to purchase flights. So look into that, see how many rewards you have and what it can get you. This one is a little more unique, but it definitely is a legit thing. House sitting swaps. There are entire websites built around people who want to vacation and they match up with someone and you switch houses across the world, across the country, wherever that may be. Fantastic. There are whole websites devoted to that. So that might be something to look into. Side hustles, anything. I used to do thrifting, resale, talking about thrifting. I used to do that on the side when my kids were little. And I had to be at home because I couldn't afford daycare. Thrifting items and reselling them. That is something that can be quite lucrative. Um, so check into that. Walk dogs, pet sitting, babysitting, mowing lawns, teaching music lessons. If you have a skill that you can teach others, there are literal websites where you can get on and go, I am versed in this, and they will match you up with someone who wants to learn that very thing, and you can earn cha-ching for doing that. So that may also be a possibility. Um, Figure out what gear you want, and this is in the same vein of what we were just talking about. Find out what pieces of gear you're looking at and start looking and searching boards online, Facebook swap. There are so many specific backpacking, hiking, outdoor gear pursuits boards where people straight up have something and they want to trade it for something else, or they have something for sale and that might be the thing that you need or that you want. Um, Trust me, it's worth it, and it does cost, a little bit of money sometimes, but it can save you so much from retail. Um, I know a lot of people, and I'm sure you've heard about this, people who and this is extreme. This does not this is an extreme case. It's not, for everyone and not for somebody who's just looking at getting into trying to fit adventure in their life unless you feel like it speaks to you. But a lot of people before doing like their first big through hike, and this is mainly the ones like the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, any big long trail that they're going to be gone for months, and that may not be you, but if it is, um, people have sold their homes. People have sold their homes, um, to go on through hikes. It is not an unheard of thing, you know? It's extreme, but I know of a lot of people who have done it, and who don't regret it. Um, you know, it may be something that might speak to you someday. So I figured, bears mentioning. Um, but you have to realize that you got to gauge what is right for you, what you're willing to do, and put a plan in place. Um, And don't be afraid to try different things, you know? Don't be afraid to try different things. Try a bunch of different side hustles, see what works for you. Get a part-time get a second job, get a part-time job. It really depends on how bad you want to do this thing. Um, I would say be undeterred. Be undeterred, no risk, no reward is one of my philosophies in life. I feel like if I'm not willing to go all in and do what is necessary, then I maybe don't want it bad enough. And that is an individual thing. Um, you have to gauge the scope of your adventures, whether it be a weekend camping trip with the girls, whether it be a day hike by yourself. Maybe you've never hiked by yourself. And there's that, little hike in your area that you want to do. Or it could be multi-day hiking in another country, decide for yourself what it means to you and set a plan in place and figure out what you need to do to make that happen. Um, so real quick, I am going to touch on some questions that were sent to me because I know we have just passed an hour. So I want to get into some Q&A real quick, and then if we still have a little bit of time, I will get back into the rest of what I wanted to talk about. We're almost done, guys. Everybody still hanging in with me? You got your coffees? So I have collected some questions, and feel free to put some questions in here if stuff just comes to you. Pop it in here. It doesn't even have to be pertinent to what we're talking about. Ask me whatever. We'll just have some fun. We're just some peeps hanging out. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Barb. I always enjoy hanging out with you. You're a great time. Guys, Barb is great. Check out Barb's YouTube channel. Barb has her own YouTube channel. She and I did some adventuring together this past spring, fall. Um and she took me to some really cool places. Check out her YouTube. It's really cool. So Q&As. This one says, "Oh, I'm thankful for you too, Jill. I love you, Jill. You are an awesome human. You have no idea. What are your thoughts on trekking pole tents versus freestanding tents?" Okay. So, for those of you who do not know, trekking pole tents are tents that are extremely light, usually made of Dyneema, but not always. And they set up using trekking poles or hiking poles, the walking sticks that you walk with when you're hiking. Um, they set up with maybe one or two trekking poles. So, in other words, those tent poles that you unfold and you put through the little loops and all that, they don't require those. Trekking pole tents are usually something you will see someone using who wants to be ultralight, who wants to really get some weight off of their back. Trekking pole tents are usually much, much lighter. Freestanding tents are the other option that this person mentions. And freestanding tents will come with usually a rain fly and the tent poles that unfold and make the exoskeleton of the tent. Freestanding tents can literally be picked up when they are fully put together and moved to another place, which is one thing that I really do miss about freestanding tents. Because if you put your tent in a place where you're like, I don't know, there's a rock there or something's under there, and you pick it up and just move the whole thing. With trekking pole tents, you can't do that. You got to take it down and move the whole dang thing. Freestanding tents will weigh more because there's more pieces. The poles do weigh a bit. The fly usually weighs a bit. So they are usually heavier, and a lot of times they are often cheaper. For an example, my first tent that I got for the West Highland Way was a tent. It was a freestanding, and it was made by a mountaineering company called Slingfin. And they were made, their tents made for mountaineering conditions. and high winds and weather and things like that, because I did expect to encounter some pretty decent winds in the Scottish Highlands, and I didn't know if a trekking pole tent would withstand the unpredictable weather. So, I went ahead and I purchased a freestanding tent, excuse me, from Sling Fin. I think that tent probably cost me 400 nine excuse me, $499, something like that. Excuse me. And it weighed, I wanna say, on the cusp of 3 pounds, not quite 3 pounds. Um, Maybe 3 pounds, I don't know, but it was definitely heavier. And then when I purchased my Z-Pax Duplex, which is a trekking pole tent for the West Highland Way, it weighed 20 ounces. So, you know, once I started practicing with my gear and realized that one of the things that was important to me was weight savings, I went all in on trekking pole tents. Um, w- I am eyeballing, I will say, some freestanding tents for some upcoming trips that I expect to have some pretty unpredictable weather. I'll get into that later. But my thoughts on them are, it depends on your budget and the type of adventure you want, and whether or not a price tag matters to you or weight matters to you. Because your lighter tents are going to be more expensive on average than your heavier freestanding tents. Certainly there are exceptions, but for me, I'm a trekking pole tent girl all day. I will 100% go for a trekking pole tent because I don't want to carry the extra poles. I actually purchased a freestanding flex kit, which is the poles that go onto the tent to make it freestanding, that works with my duplex. Z-Pax no longer makes them, but I did purchase that and bring it with me to Scotland. So I had the versatility of having both. Um, but for me, it was about weight, 100%. So decide what is important to you, what kind of adventure you are going on, what the conditions are going to be, where you're at, and make your decision from there. Um, the idea of wild camping scares me a little. I'm not really scared of being solo. My biggest fear is that I won't find a place to pitch. I can relate. I've been thinking about giving up my dream of doing the Barrow Way to do the West Highland Way a second time because it already feels familiar. So maybe tips on how to deal with the fear of the unknown on the trail. So I will say that resonates with me. And Barb and I actually talked about this when we were on our last traverse of the West Highland Way. Um, we were talking about getting more comfortable with finding a place to pitch naturally, wild camping more, because I know that I have anxiety about it's going to get dark and I won't find a place to pitch. I have a lot of anxiety about that, and it causes me to rush, and it causes me to miss a lot of things. And Barb expressed similar sentiment, and we actually did chat about doing the West Highland Way because we were so familiar with it. Um, and I say, I don't think you're giving up your dream of doing the Barrow Way just because you're thinking about doing a more familiar trail first. Um, you can push it off a little bit, you can reschedule it. But I don't think you're giving up your dream. I think that you are thinking about ways to alleviate the stress of it a little bit and maybe make yourself feel a little more confident about it. Um, so I would say that that's not it's not a bad idea. Um, Dealing with the fear of the unknown is it's a real thing. It's a real thing in both preparing to go on a journey like this and actually being on it. Um, there's an expression called "we pack our fears," and I think that's true physically. Um, as in, a lot of people tend to overpack. I've been guilty of this because what if I need this? What if this? What if that? What if this? And I think that what we need to do is stop focusing so much on what might happen or might go wrong and start looking at what might go right. Focus on what it is for what it is. For instance, you're walking along, you haven't found a place to pitch yet, and it's starting to get dark. So, so what? You probably have a headlamp with you, and if you don't, you probably have a flashlight on your phone. Open that sucker up and just, you're walking along, you have to take it down to the realities of what's happening. Just because the sun goes down doesn't mean there are less appropriate spots. um, and it doesn't mean that a million boogeymen are now suddenly going to jump out of the forest and get you. But I understand that anxiety because that is my exact anxiety a lot of the time. Um, you just have to do it. You just have to do it. I think that is my best tip on how to deal with the fear of the unknown. Don't pack your fears in your bag or in your mind. Don't. Just do what you need to do. There are apps. I don't know if you guys, I think Far Out, formerly Gut Hook, but I think Far Out um, has wild camp spots in there. I know the Hiker app is a really good resource for camp spots and things like that. There are a lot of people that have hiked these trails and marked and put certain notes in these apps on where to find the best camp spots. Sometimes you may not find an ideal spot and you just sit that sucker down wherever you can because you're so dang tired and you're over it. But you just have to do it. The apps and stuff can help you so that when you start your day, you have an idea of where the best spots might be. Watching other people's videos that have done the exact trail that you're getting ready to do. Take notes of where they pitched because a lot of times people will share, I pitched right here. They'll show you a picture. Some people will give you the coordinates. So I would just do it. Only way to get over fear and get comfortable with fear is to do the thing. Fear gets easier to sit with the more we practice facing it. It is true. Thanks, Barb. It is totally true. Oh, I forgot. I'd missed this one. Love my trekking pole tent, but it does give me the fear that I won't find a suitable pitch. Me too. It does. But I know of very few videos where I have watched people actually have the same anxiety where they don't find someplace. There's going to be a plot of ground somewhere. There's going to be something. So I think the best way to do it is just get out and do it. As much as you can do it, you will get over that fear. But I don't think you're giving up your dream of doing the trail you want to do simply because you want to practice on a familiar trail. I mean, I think that's smart. I think it's smart and it'll help build your confidence for sure. Either way you decide, it's going to work out. Just know that. Will you be doing any group walks? And if so, when and where? So, yes, I did want to touch on this a bit. I will be doing some group walks. I am eyeballing 2026 or 2027 for this. Some of you I have spoken to directly about this. I am looking at taking a small group of women over to Scotland to do the West Highland Way. And if that is something you are interested in, shoot me a message or go over to my Patreon. You can join as a free member over there because the first notifications will go out on Patreon once that is all set up. I will be announcing it way ahead of the actual thing because people need time to prepare, and I will be walking people through training, gear choices, all of those things. But yes, I do have plans to do that in the future. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be fun. What else do we have? Will you be doing another bike packing trip? Yes. Yes. I do have plans to do that. I will say not in the immediate future, but I do have some that I have on my list that I'm planning on doing. So yes, if you have not watched my Hebridean Way bikepacking trip, that was the first bikepacking trip I ever did. And for those of you who might not know what bikepacking is, you are basically traversing a trail and living with everything you need on your bike. You're taking everything on your bike, your tent, your food, your everything, and you're just going from place to place on your bike. I did the Hebrides, the Outer Hebrides in Scotland, and it was amazing. It was an adventure. But yes, I do. I do have plans to do another one. Let me scroll through here and make sure I did not miss any from the chat. Yay, when I'm not running it. Oh, yeah, Barb's gonna be running the West Highland Way, guys. I'm super excited. I'm really excited. There's a big West Highland Way race, and, I'm still thinking you should do that, Barb. Barb should do that. Um, doo. Here's another one. What have you learned backpacking that transfers directly to real life? Oh, so many things. Self-reliance. A lot of times in my life, I have let other people make all the decisions and let other people take the reins and make the plans and do all the stuff. Um, so it has made me more self-reliant and self-sufficient. It has definitely made me a lot more confident. It's made me not so fearful of doing things alone. I've always been a bit of a loner. Like if nobody wanted to do something, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to do it myself. Um, but doing something like this, where you are totally out, like you're out. There's some parts of like the West Highland Way, for example, where you're a good haul away from civilization. Um, Rannoch Moor. If you change your mind, it's a long way out. The only way out is on foot. Um, so it's made me more resilient. It's made me tougher. It's made me um, it's made me better at thinking on my feet. Um, I've done this thing over the last couple trips where I purposely don't plan out because I'm a planner, and I used to be like, if I don't have all the things planned out, I panic. Like there can't be any dead air or anything like that. Um, so I stopped planning the last several days or week of my excursions. I quit doing that, and I didn't make any plans of where I was going to stay. I didn't have a car. I had no idea where I was going to be or what I was going to do. And I will tell you that it has made me more resilient, and it has made me do things that I otherwise would not have done. And I discovered so many cool things about myself, about the area that I was in. It made me realize that fear really does not have to control your life and shouldn't. Um, so I think it's all around has made me more self reliant and more confident in myself. Um, Oh, I also think it's made me more sympathetic to people. Because when you go on one of these excursions, and I think this is one of the things that stick with you the most about long distance treks, and um, of a lot of the names I see here, I know a lot of you will probably relate to this. You meet people who are very open book. They don't expect they're ever going to see you again, and they will tell you things. They'll tell you things about themselves, about their lives. You'll learn things about strangers, and it really has made me more open to meeting new people because prior to all of this, I wasn't very people-y. Like, yes, I've done public speaking and I've done things where I've had to talk to a lot of people, and I'm good with customer service and stuff like that. But if I were to choose being by myself or talking to a bunch of people, I would always choose being by myself. That was just me. But these journeys have taught me that it really is about people and opening yourself up and learning and sharing in a mutual hard thing that you guys are out here doing. You may meet people that you would never in your life connect with. Um, I've met people on these trails, and because I made the decision to do these adventures that I never would have met, um, in my outside normal life. So, Yeah, it's done a lot for me. Um, do you have plans to return to Scotland next year? No. Um, I want to. I want to, but no, I do not. I am going to be attempting the Pacific Crest Trail in 2025, and that will take up about 5 to 5.5 months of my life if things go um, well. Um, there are a lot of fires that happen every year on the PCT. Fire closures are a real thing. And I also have to look at snowpack in the Sierras and how that might affect my trip. So no, I don't have plans to go to Scotland next year. I will miss it for sure because I love that place. um, Let's see. Oh yeah, yeah. Have you ever been afraid on trail? Yes. I think if you're not afraid and you don't have a healthy fear, um, you're not human. All of us are gonna be afraid of something at some point on trail. Yes. Yes, I have. You hear noises in your tent. You think animals or murderers are coming to get you. I will say Scotland doesn't have a whole lot of animals that are gonna eat you, unlike where I came from. But, um, of course, of course, you I will say, excuse me, that you still have to be aware. You still want to be aware of your surroundings. You don't want to think that you're stepping into a fairyland where nothing bad ever happens to anyone. You do still have to be aware of your surroundings and what's going on, and be smart. But yeah, I have. I've been afraid on trail. Um, what advice do you have for people who have little to no experience in the outdoors but want to start hiking and camping? What I talked about earlier is starting small. Just start small and do it. Um, Take a class, talk to somebody, or go with somebody who is more experienced than you. Watch things like this, live streams. REI offers classes. If you have an REI near you, a lot of outdoor places will offer instruction for beginners. So that is definitely a place to start. Um, Getting out and doing it is the most important thing. If you're new to camping, for instance, and you've never spent a night inside a tent, get yourself a tent, borrow one, rent one, buy one, however you got to have one. Set it up inside your house or in your backyard and get in there and see what it feels like to be in there. I always tell everybody start in your own backyard. That's where I go. I literally am going to be going in my backyard this weekend and trying out some new gear. It's the best place to go. Um, because if it doesn't work out or things change, you just walk right inside. Um, so you have to just seek out those who have more experience than you. YouTube is a wonderful resource. I learned so many things and I continue to learn so many things. I don't consider myself an expert. So I will go to people who are doing what I want to do and watch what they do. Um, Classes, like I talked about before, search your local REI. They will always have navigation. They will always have public hiking groups. Facebook. Facebook groups will also have like local walking groups, camping excursions. Um, get a friend and go, hey, you want to have a camp out in the backyard with the kids? This is something that you can do whether you have kids or not. I used to do it with my kids when I was unable to get away and I just felt like I needed a campfire and a night in the tent. I would just go in the backyard, you know? Um, just start and absorb all of the knowledge you possibly can. And once you feel like you've got a decent knowledge, get out there. Get out there and start doing some of the things that you want to do and start putting some of the things that you learn into practice. So you're gonna volunteer at the race? That's so cool, Barb. I'm so excited for you, Barb, to follow that. That's gonna be really exciting. Let me see if I got all the questions that people sent me. Um, yes, I did that one. Yes, I did that one. Okay, I'm so overwhelmed with planning my first overnight camping trip. Where do I even start? Um, First, do you have the gear that you need? What kind of camping trip is it? Is it just overnight? Is it multi-day? Find out what gear you need. Get a piece of paper. I'm a pen and paper girl. I will just sit and write down all of the things that need to be done to make that thing happen. And then it's not so overwhelming when I see it in print and I just cross the things off one at a time. It sounds dumb, but literally just write it down so you can see everything that needs to be done. I would say start in, like I said earlier, in the backyard. You know, if it's overwhelming you, just the planning or the execution, it looks like just the planning. So just if it's just the planning that's overwhelming you, just start writing all the things down that need to be done. Where are you going to camp? Who's coming? What do you need to bring to be comfortable? Check the weather. See what the weather is going to be so you know what degree sleeping items you need to bring. Are pets coming? Who's going to bring their stuff? Um, Write down everything that you need to know for that thing and just go through them slowly and methodically. That is the best advice that I can give you because you will feel overwhelmed. And when you start putting together multi-day excursions, it can be very overwhelming and there can be a lot of unknowns, especially like if your first overnight camping trip is going to be a wild camp. If you guys are just going to walk and camp in like a public lands area, a park that might have wild dispersed camping areas, or a campground, decide what type of camping you're going to do, first of all, and where it's going to be. And then that will narrow down everything else that follows after that. Break it down into digestible pieces. All right. I need a drink. I've been yammering for a long time. We are just about done, guys. Um, one thing I wanted to talk about real fast about gear. I'll try to be quick because I know you guys probably have stuff to do. Um, Research the gear that you're going to need for whatever this adventure is that you're going to go on. Research, and once you get the gear, um, practice with it. Um, I'll mention REI again because REI is great. You can go in there and they can literally fit you for backpacks. These are skilled people who know what they're doing most of the time. As far as properly fitting you for a backpack, for hiking shoes, who will know things like the length of your torso, what kind of backpack you need. Do I want load lifters? Do I want frameless? Um, all the things that might not make any sense to you and be very, very overwhelming, they can break it down for you and make it much, much easier. And they will take time with you. In my experience, REI folks are super helpful. Um, and REI also, if you join their co op, you will get discounts on gear, plus you get a year to return stuff versus the 90 days, I believe, if you're not a member. So, mhm. Um, and that can be a factor if you are trying a bunch of different gear for your excursion because you don't know what's going to work for you. Um, so try before you buy. Check all the Facebook marketplace groups and resale things like we talked about earlier. Shakedowns, shakedown hikes, practice. Practice with your gear because the last thing you want to do is go on that excursion without ever having actually practiced with any of your gear. No matter how small that piece of gear seems or insignificant in the grand scheme it might seem, trust me, practice. Practice with it before you go. Shakedowns are practice hikes. They can be day hikes, They could be multi-day hikes. So it's important to know how that gear is going to function and whether or not it's going to work out for you, whether you need to look for something else. So practice, practice, practice. Um, and you do not always have to spend a lot of money on gear. I will say, I like to be as light as I can be because I have a lot of pains and things hurt all the time. So it's important for me to keep my pack as light as possible. So for me, my main focus is how light and while still being functional can I get my pack. And unfortunately, you will learn if you start looking at lightweight gear, it can be very pricey. Very pricey. Um, so you don't have to go with super expensive gear though. There are plenty of pieces of gear that are functional and cheaper, but know that a lot of times they will be heavier, but not always. One case in point is the little BRS portable stove that I purchased not long ago. And it is super light. It's lighter than my MSR stove that I've been using for last several trips, and it was cheaper on Amazon. It had good reviews. The thing was 16 bucks as opposed to the like 50 that I spent for the other one. So more expensive doesn't always mean it's going to be better for you. It also doesn't always mean it's going to, be lighter or heavier. So take everything as it comes. Do your research. Just get what you can afford. You can borrow gear. You can borrow gear. You can rent gear. There are rental places where you can rent gear. Find a friend who may have some gear who may let you borrow it. Um, there are many ways to save a buck or two. But I will say that joining REI, joining the co-op, really, really helps because you also get the dividend each year, which is a chunk of money back based on your purchases that you made the previous year. I look forward to that dividend check every year because it goes right back to REI. It goes right back into gear. Um, I'm also very thankful at their resupply. REI in many stores has a resupply section, which is a section that's just used gear. So if you are an REI member, you can turn in used gear, trade in used gear, and get different gear. So there's all kinds of things that are open to you as an REI member. As I learned when I got to the Pacific Northwest, they have full on REI resupply stores. So that was super exciting. We all know where I spend a lot of my time, but it doesn't have to be expensive. Um, I'm thinking about making a video with budget gear and kind of getting into this topic a little bit more. I'm listening to you in my car, taking the girls to a parade. Hi, girls. Wish we had that here. Yeah. Does Mountain Warehouse and what's the other big one? Cotswold Outfitters. Do they do they not have or is it Mountain Warehouse, Mountain Hardware, Mountain Warehouse? Do they not have classes and stuff? Or is it the resupply you're talking about? Because I know you guys don't have REI over there. REI is great. Um, no classes or resupply. See, that's wow. There's no classes? See, the resupply thing, there's a business idea, Barb. You and I need to talk. We need to talk. Um, yeah. I'm very, very thankful for my REI membership. I think that when you're starting out, it's very easy to be overwhelmed with what everything costs. I will say that I have spent so much money, so much money. But I've also saved a lot of money by going with a lot of gear that was used or repurposed or that I borrowed. So you don't have to spend a ton of money. Um, I think that's about it. So before I go, because we're coming up on 2 hours, and I thank you guys so much for spending this time with me today. I know it's a long time to just sit and listen to somebody yammer on. But I went through all my questions. If anybody else has any questions that I missed or didn't get to, or something that you think about, um, when we're done here, just message me or comment down below. I did want to let you guys know that I am going to be doing a giveaway today. Going to give away some stuff. So I am going to be giving away two things today. I'm going to be giving away a Patreon gift subscription. The only caveat is you can't already be a patron for this one. So it's going to be somebody who maybe has been thinking about being a patron who is not. So, what I'm going to have you guys do, since I didn't collect names or anything ahead of time, is comment down below if you are interested in that. And I will pick the first person that comments the word yes or a thumbs up, and that will let me know that you are interested in that. And then I will reach out to you privately to get your information on where to send that. So go ahead and put that in the comment section down below. If you're interested, just put a yes or a thumbs up if you would like to be included in that. Also, what I'm going to be doing is giving away a Z-Packs inflatable pillow. Z-Packs is one of the leading ultralight outfitters in the business. They're very popular. They're actually based out of my home area in Florida, and it was dangerous to be right down the road from them. So I'm going to be giving away the Z-Packs inflatable pillow today, and I'm going to be picking someone at random to receive that. So what I'm going to do is have you guys also comment pillow if you are interested in that. And the first one that comments on the Patreon, I will send you the information. And as far as the Z-Packs pillow, anybody who's interested in being in that, just comment pillow. And after the live stream today, I will reach out to one of you for your mailing address and send that to you. I do have some more giveaways planned for the future. I have some cool stuff coming up, and I can't wait to do that because I think that'll be fun. I like doing giveaways. I've been part of some other people's giveaways, and it's always fun and exciting. And you never know, it may give somebody a chance to put their kit together, get that one last little missing piece. So with Christmas coming up, I did want to let you guys know that I am going to try to do another giveaway before Christmas, and I will let everybody know ahead of time what I am going to be putting up there. So thank you guys so much for coming on here today with me. I know it's been a long one, and I've covered a lot of stuff. To sum everything up, choosing to put more adventure in your life, it's something you're not going to regret. It's an investment in yourself and in living a more fulfilling life, because I think so many of us get stuck with the same old thing, and we get stuck in ruts, and we just want to do things different, whether that's a small adventure on a smaller scale or a big adventure, like a big grand adventure on a larger scale. Each of those are very important to people in different ways. And I think that committing to that and committing to yourself, I think you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong investing in yourself and in your dreams, because, I mean, if life isn't an adventure, what is it? If we're not here to see things and experience things and to learn and grow and be in awe of this amazing planet that we have, then, what are we here for? So, um, thank you guys so much. Oh, love you too, Barb. Oh, I miss you. I miss you guys. Miss you, Jill. Thank you guys so much for today. I really appreciate it. I had fun doing my first live stream. Oh, thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys so much. Alrighty, so I will be reaching out to those giveaway winners at some point today. So thank you guys so much for coming, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. See you guys. Gotta log off.